brutally waged war for England with the motto, better to die than be a coward. Versus the French Foreign Legion, a corps of real-life expendables who fought desperately at Bir Hakeim in 1942 to stop Hitler's advance on the North African oil fields. It's a perfect engagement for Mac to assess the X factor of battlefield tactics.
The French Foreign Legion was placed at the bottom of this French-British line extending down from the coast in Libya down to this old Ottoman fort called Bir Hakeim to try to stop the German-Italian advance toward the Suez Canal. If these French Foreign Legionnaires don't hold the line, the war could be over in 42.
Set up the battlefield.
These encircling bands are the attacking German and Italian divisions. You had 10-to-1 ratio in troop numbers between the Germans 10 and the French 1.
Wow.
Rommel thinks it'll be over in a single day.
So what happens?
He meets unexpectedly ferocious resistance from the French Foreign Legion. Every time the Germans come up close, they get blown back by anti-tank gunfire, by rifle fire. I mean, this was a bloody fight.
And there was nothing about the Battle of Bir Hakeim that was a passive defense. This was an active defense.
The Legionnaires are the ones who conduct these daring raids at night. It's an active defense when they hit these key roads that the Germans and Italians use to supply themselves. So they slow down the resupply of the besieging divisions.
But the counterattack raids of the active defense tactic forced the Nazis to change their formation to protect supply lines.
Rommel wants to contain them, make sure they don't break out, and they bought themselves 2 weeks, and those 2 weeks were critical moments. By the second week of the Battle of Bir Hakeim, the French are basically down to nothing.
There's only one option. You either fight or you die.
French Foreign Legion said, we're going to break out so that we can fight another day. So they detected areas where there were gaps or little hinges they could slip through.
So what they decide is, we're going to cut all the way through here at night and escape this position.
Winston Churchill later said the survival of the Allies owed to the resistance of the French Foreign Legion at Bir Hakeim.
The Gurkhas clearly used their improvised ambushes to help the Allies defeat Japan during World War II. But what the French Foreign Legion did at Bir Hakeim with their active defense against Rommel, holding him in place long enough for the Allies to change the course of World War II, was incredible.
For the battlefield tactics that prevented Nazi world domination, edge French Foreign Legion. When World War II combat got up close, these soldiers fell back on their battle blades. The Gurkhas butchered the enemy with their centuries-old knife, the kukri, an everyday farming tool turned standard-issue military weapon. The Gurkhas' World War II-era kukri is handcrafted for the first time in over 50 years by weapons designer and builder Dave Baker, just below the Fight Club in the Deadliest Warrior Armory.
We did extensive research into some museum pieces and found that the kukri of World War II was about a 10.5-inch blade with a 5-inch handle. When making this, we start by hammering this head out into a leaf shape, creating the forward bend. And what that gives us is a weighted head, which creates a really good cutting action.
Just 1 inch above the edge of kukri, there is a little notch. It stops the blood coming through in the hand. In your battle, when you start chopping people's head off, if the blood gets your hand, obviously you will lose kukri.
In a test to measure these blades' penetration damage and overall effectiveness, the experts will attack a World War II foxhole. Two guards, represented by bovine torso, mimic human flesh and bone.
During the struggle, the man sleeping in behind wakes up, and that's where we're going to assess the accuracy of your reactive final blow.
Doesn't hit back neck, don't worry.
Thanks, Gabe.
To measure each blade's impact velocity, Jeff attaches a three-dimensional orientation sensor.
Beautiful. This is perfect. On 3, 2, 1, cut him up! Good work.
Okay, so let's take a look at the damage.
All three targets were instant kills.
Take a look down at the slash through literally the jaw of this guy. If this wood wasn't here, he would be actually doing that decapitation like you said you would with this weapon.
The impact velocity was 59 miles per hour. Nice work, Rye.
When you're up close and personal in combat, you got to be effective. That's most important. As far as the X factor of killer instinct, I think you've demonstrated that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
To be completely honest, Mac, I was unimpressed. His tactics, honestly, I thought sucked. I'm sorry, but throwing head kicks in battle makes as much sense as punching somebody in the foot. When he does that first slash, he turns his back on this guy, and we're taught never take your eyes off your opponent.
What happens if there is 9 opponents on your side? Who are you going to watch?
There weren't 9, there were 3.
And obviously, if you can kick someone's head without any difficulties, big time knockout, job done.
Taking on the Kukri is the Legion's vicious blade, Camalus, a version of the famed K-bar knife issued to the U.S. Marines in World War II.
Millions of these things were made. Americans carried them into the European theater, and thus they found their way into Legion hands.
Remember, they're the world's premier light infantry. They don't get a lot of heavy artillery or any armor, so they're very reliant on what they have. So knives are very important to them.
But how were the Camalus compared to the Kukri?
On 3, 2, 1, cut them up! Done!
3 targets, 3 instant kills.
The impact velocity is 81 miles per hour. Nice job, Nick.
This looks like classic definition of a lover scorned injury, but on a serious level, you can get stabbed over 20 times and survive. It's the location you place him in, and you definitely demonstrated that here.
I left him in that brutalized state on purpose because I want to move on and have his mates come in and look at that. One trick is you kill every second guy, so when they wake up in the morning, every second guy is down. That messes with their head. They don't want to mess with you.
You know, you bring up the psychological warfare, and that definitely is an X factor we can plug into the sim.
Camalus struck faster, but the Kukri's blade cut deeper. So which close-range weapon gives his warrior the edge?
We did see the speed of the Camalus over the Kukri. 81 miles per hour versus 59 miles per hour.
But when you're talking about delivering, executing on the battlefield, you want your weapon system to be able to do 80% of the work. It is obvious which weapon will do more work for you just by looking at them.
I agree with everything you guys just said. The design of this, you can slash and get an instant kill, and you can thrust and get an instant kill. I'm not convinced that the Camalus is going to kill every time. You've got to place it perfectly.
For close-range weapons, the edge goes to the Gurkhas for the Kukri. Coming up, the final battle. The Gurkhas, quick-strike hitmen whose rugged mountain upbringing gives them unstoppable endurance, versus the French Foreign Legion, the outlaws whose brutal desert training transforms them into killing machines. Who will be the deadliest warrior?
Wow, those were brutal knife tests. Nick went absolutely crazy with the Camalus, but the Kukri is still a great knife as well. Let's take another look at the live voting. We've reset the poll just in case you've changed your mind, and it looks like Gurkhas are actually ahead. French Foreign Legion not being favoured as much. I'm totally going for the Gurkhas. Dr. Dorian, do you have any final thoughts before we run that simulation?
You know, what's interesting here, with this technology, we're seeing what the viewers think, and it's the same way that I felt while we shot the episode and kind of how I feel right now. I can't wait to see the final battle.
No, absolutely. I think we all are. We're really looking forward to that. All right, the viewers are going for, still looks like the Gurkhas. Yeah, Gurkhas are still ahead. And after the break, we will run the sim and see if you have got that voting right. Vampires versus Zombies is coming up next, and we will be joined by a very special guest, so stay tuned and keep those votes coming in. dwlive.spike.com.
Yet another important X factor for me is psychological warfare.
We almost had a dead even heap with this, and we rated the Gurkhas an 85, 87, but in reality, that's a wash.
Gurkha versus French Foreign Legionnaire. Who is deadliest? Our team of specialists has tested, recorded, and analyzed weapons these two great warriors brought to this World War II showdown. In long-range weapons, the Browning automatic rifle gunned down the Bren light machine gun. Edge Legionnaire. The medium-range weapons, the Enfield No. 4 bolt-action rifle outshot the Mass 36. Edge Gurkha. In short-range weapons, the Gurkha's Kukri had more killing potential than the Camalus. Edge Gurkha. In battlefield tactics, the French Foreign Legion's active defense defeated the Gurkha's improvised ambush. Edge Legionnaire. All the weapons data has been turned over to Robert Daly and plugged into the digital combat engine. His engineers have completed their historical research and assigned values to more than 100 X factors.
Our team of researchers look at all of those things that make up the warrior behind the weapons, their battles, their fighting styles, their techniques. We quantify that data with a numerical value between 1 and 100, with 100 being the ultimate warrior.
The Gurkhas born to fight, whereas the legionnaires, if they screw up, they get brutally punished. That is, to me, all about discipline and the training that it takes to instill that discipline.
Exactly correct. When you look at discipline, the edge goes to the Gurkhas. And we rated an 88 to the French Foreign Legion 76. Training, on the other hand, the training in the Legion is insane. So training was a 90 for the Legion and an 87 for the Gurkhas.
For me, physicality is so important in this matchup. For the first time, we actually have a warrior whose environment becomes a physiological advantage. And that's gotta be a big factor here.
When you look at the Gurkhas, because they're in a higher altitude, they are able to recover faster or to sustain themselves longer. And we had to rate the Gurkhas higher on this, and we gave them a 91, and we gave the French Foreign Legion an 84.
Okay, we've entered in all of our X factors. Let's run the sim.
The digital combat engine will run 5,000 battles between 5 Gurkhas and 5 Legionnaires.
It was a really close match. The Gurkhas did end up winning 2,619 versus 2,381.
In the head-to-head weapons comparison, the French Foreign Legion's Browning automatic rifle destroyed the Bren gun. But the Gurkhas' Enfield No. 4 outperformed the MAS 36, and their Kukri decapitated the Kamalus.
Historically, the Bren light machine gun had significant malfunctions in the field, and this is really what played out in the results. But the final outcome came down to where they trained. And the French Foreign Legion trained in a very harsh desert, but it is not the same as the high altitude training that the Gurkhas went through. And that physicality difference really showed up in our fatigue rates of these troops. The Gurkhas were only exhausted 5.02% of the time, whereas the French Foreign Legion were exhausted 10.9% of the time. And that's a really important thing.
The Gurkhas live to be warriors on the battlefield. It is a generational thing. The knowledge keeps getting passed down from father to son. They live to show up on a battlefield. And when they turn it on, watch the hell out.
And there you go, the Gurkhas win it. What a phenomenal matchup. Stick around because up next it is the long-awaited vampires versus zombies, and vampire expert Steve Niles.
These key roads that the Germans and Italians used to supply themselves, so they slow down the resupply of the besieging divisions.
But the counterattack raids of the active defense tactic forced the Nazis to change their formation to protect supply lines.
Rommel wants to contain them, make sure they don't break out, and they bought themselves 2 weeks, and those 2 weeks were critical moments. By the second week of the Battle of Bir Hakeim, the French are basically down to nothing.
There's only one.
Brutally waged war for England with the motto, better to die than be a coward. Versus the French Foreign Legion, a corps of real-life expendables who fought desperately at Bir Hakeim in 1942 to stop Hitler's advance on the North African oil fields. It's a perfect engagement for Mac to assess the X factor of battlefield tactics.
The French Foreign Legion was placed at the bottom.
An option. You either fight or you die.
French Foreign Legion said, we're going to break out so that we can fight another day. So they detected areas where there were gaps or little hinges they could slip through.
So what they decided is, we're going to cut all the way through here at night and escape this position.
Winston Churchill later said the survival of the Allies owed to the resistance of the French Foreign Legion at Bir Hakeim.
The Gurkhas clearly used their improvised...
Some of this French-British line extending down from the coast in Libya down to this old Ottoman fort called Bir Hakeim to try to stop the German-Italian advance toward the Suez Canal. If these French Foreign Legionnaires don't hold the line, the war could be over in 42.
Set up the battlefield.
These encircling bands are the attacking German and Italian divisions. You had 10-to-1 ratio in troop numbers between the Germans 10 and the French 1.
Wow.
Rommel thinks it'll be over in a single day.
But what happens?
He meets unexpectedly ferocious resistance from the French Foreign Legion. Every time the Germans come up close, they get blown back by anti-tank gunfire, by rifle fire. I mean, this was a bloody fight.
And there was nothing about the Battle of Bir Hakeim that was a passive defense. This was an active defense.
The Legionnaires are the ones who conduct these daring raids at night. It's an active defense when they hit